Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to Roids, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Steroids Podcast. So a couple episodes ago, I announced that I was opening up the Steroids Podcast coaching services. So I announced that I was opening up the text message-based coaching and then the 1 hour phone consult coaching, and both of those have been going extremely well since I announced that on the podcast. Actually, in the month or so since I announced that those were going to be happening, had a bunch of guys come on to the text messaging based coaching program, which is on WhatsApp. And so with that one on WhatsApp, we text message each other back and forth every day. And the best part about life, okay? The best part about life is relationships. And so I have appreciated having the opportunity to get to know these guys. Everybody that has come on to the program, we're all friends now. And we weren't before, so that's a bunch of new relationships in each other's lives now that we're doing that, and it's been great. Every day I check up on those guys, see what they're doing, talk about their workouts, talk about their performance-enhancing drug protocols. We can troubleshoot side effects. A few of the guys that have come onto the program, they came on to the text messaging-based coaching service with me, which is month to month, and they, were in a bad situation. Either they had some coach that was telling them bad information and they were having massive side effects, and then they switched over, or they, were using things that, they were getting side effects from, and then they started up the program. Hey, there's even been some natural guys who signed up. And that's been great too. And then other guys have been guys, who are inexperienced and, want some guidance and need someone to be there for them when they're, going through starting that journey, starting using these things. And it's been great helping them. And other guys more advanced just need someone in their corner to help them, when they have something going on. But I've really enjoyed being able to talk to those guys each day and become friends and help them out. Because, you guys can tell from listening to the podcast. That's really the whole reason behind all this is I know exactly how everyone feels when it comes to, not being able to find the correct information about these things, these substances that are widely used in sports, fitness, bodybuilding, etc. Widely used substance. It's like, why is it impossible to just get some real information about this stuff? So, I went through that whole journey and, have the information and the experience now. And so, yeah, absolutely. I love being able to help people out and share that with them and help them meet their goals. So some of the things that some of these guys have had problems with. One guy had a lot of water retention because his previous coach had only had experience with generic growth hormone, which we all know generic growth hormone is dog shit, okay? And so his God God, this was the one that really stuck out to me. Okay, so this was irritating that he got this bad information. So he had pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone. Okay, Zomactin brand human growth hormone, made and manufactured in America and sold from hospitals in America. Okay, so that's the brand of growth hormone that he had. And, you know, his previous coach had never used pharmaceutical grade growth hormone before. And so all he knew about to give recommendations for dosages was what he had experience with, which we all know non-human pharmaceutical grade growth hormone is dog shit. Okay? Dog shit. Growth hormone is made by altering the DNA of Ecoli bacteria by splicing in viruses into the E. coli bacteria's DNA and having the viruses modify the E. coli bacteria's DNA so that instead of replicating E. coli bacteria DNA, it instead replicates, for its reproduction process, replicates human growth hormone. Okay, so this is why human growth hormone, it's not like roids where just anybody can make it. It's like no one can make it. Okay, no one can make it except for highly trained scientists in highly professional laboratories. That's why you should not use generic growth hormone. If anybody is trying to sell generic growth hormone, it's a red flag. As far as growth hormone goes, the only thing that is reliable at all is name brand growth hormone. Okay, so this guy's coach had never used pharmaceutical grade growth hormone anymore. And so for this guy who hadn't used growth hormone, he told him his starting dosage should be 10 IUs per day, 5 IUs in the morning, 5 IUs at night. Okay. And so this guy got insane side effects. Okay. He showed me a picture of his leg and it looked like he was pregnant. Okay. Because of the mark from his sock in his skin. Okay. Because one of the major effects of human pharmaceutical grade growth hormone is an increase in water retention, okay? And if you don't build up to a dosage, so that when you first start the growth hormone, your body has a water response, okay? But then it adjusts and, you lose some of that water after about a week and go back to about normal. And so what you do when you start out taking human growth hormone is you start out at like 2 IUs per day or 3 IUs per day. Then you move up to like 4. And, you wait about 2 more weeks. Then you can move up to 6. Wait a couple of weeks. You can move up to 8. You don't just jump in at 10, okay? Or else you'll have insane water retention side effects, okay? So that's what this guy was having. He's having massive blood pressure, massive pressure headaches. His legs had, half-inch indentations in them from, wearing socks. It was a total, he was in a nightmare situation. He was getting gyno. So we had to take him off, most of the supplements he was using and then, reintroduce things slowly. And why did this start? It started because some moron who had no experience with real growth hormone told him how to use his growth hormone. Because, you're not going to get a lot of results from generic growth hormone unless you're using like 10 IUs per day. Why is that? No one knows. Because no one knows what generic growth hormone is. It could be peptides. It could be something else. No one knows. Okay? So that was one good experience with the coaching. That guy was doing the 30 days, the monthly coaching with the text message based coaching, because we were able to get him out of that nightmare situation. Like when he first, contacted me, he was in an urgent situation, massively stressing, undergoing, more and more side effects, with every few hours that went by. And we were able to, spend some time and, get everything figured out. And, now everything's fine. Now he's fine. And that's the way it should have been. It's the way it should have been all along if he would have just got the correct information, So it's good seeing him go from this bad situation he was in to now he's in a good situation. And that's the kind of things that I'm talking about, is that, for guys that, have already been using gear, or for if you haven't used gear yet, you can do all of the reading that you want to do on gear. but until you've actually used it, like honestly, like don't know anything. Like, and that's something that everyone who has experienced using gear will say. That I will say it myself, about myself, and then other people too. Like that knowledge that you have from studying and reading, it helps, and it provides like a really good base or backbone for the knowledge that you can really start to acquire through use, and then comparing your use to other users. But just studying, it will. There's no amount really of studying that can prepare you for having to troubleshoot the issues and side effects that will come along when you use these things, because it's your hormonal systems are very sensitive systems, and it takes someone with real experience and a real expert to be able to navigate those tiny little changes that are going on and make everything smooth. So that's why I wrote Ultimate Guide to Roids. My book was to help you guys start out, with that backbone of information that is the correct information, and not trying to jerk you around, just, talking to you as if you were my buddy. Ultimate Guide to Roids is a joy to read. It's not boring at all. It's not like a science book. It contains science, but when you open that thing up and start reading it, it's like most people can't stop until they get to the last page. Jay Masters from the Delray Misfits, who just benched about a 540 pound bench press with a pause in competition, and he was reading Ultimate Guide to Roids the other day, and that's what happened to him. Is he just wanted to check it out, see what it was all about, but once he opened that book, he said that he couldn't stop reading until the entire 109 pages was over. So, like I said, you guys, that book is my pride and joy. And, I put my all into that book. Like, I literally put my all into that book. So, it's awesome. Everyone should read it. Really, everyone should read that book. Yeah, and so then with the 1 hour phone consults too, those have been going good. Had a lot of good experiences talking with you guys off of that. So yeah, anyways, since I introduced the coaching and the phone calls, about a month ago or so, that's been going great, and I have really enjoyed and got satisfaction being able to help you guys out who have been listening to the podcast, following me on YouTube for years, etc. Being able to have that personal communication with you guys. I enjoy it. That's what I want to do. That's my goal. Help you. And honestly, it seems ridiculous that is like surprising to hear, or surprising to hear me say, because that's what you think everybody should be doing, right? It's a testament to how messed up this industry is, and how messed up, why it is so hard to get the correct information. Because why is it so damn hard to just find some real information and find somebody, or find some people that aren't trying to like rip you off, give you partial information, partial truths, and just freaking help you. Okay? Why is that so hard? So basically, that's like my whole idea with like bodybuilderinthailand.com, steroidspodcast.com, and all the work that I do, is that I saw this hole because I used to be in your situation, and I said, hey, there is this, after I got through it all and acquired the correct information about pro sports, bodybuilding, fitness industry, all this stuff, then I looked at this and I said, hey, this is messed up. There's this massive hole of information here, and there are millions of people who want this information bad, and there's nowhere to get it. There's no reliable place to get it, and that is messed up. And so I saw this like massive hole, like in the market, or this hole of information. The information is lacking, not there. There's no place to get it. There's like no one you can trust. And that's publicly available. And I saw that and I said, hey, I'm going to plug that hole. And you kind of like, asked sometimes because, I really put myself out there with this stuff, like saying like I use this stuff and like showing my face, my name, and, publicly doing that. And, a lot of people, I'm sure, see that and think like, whoa, that's pretty big because, that definitely brands myself, or, being open about those things, it's socially unacceptable. So, by making this kind of content for you guys and everything, I am aware that, to the average person in the average society, or if I was living a traditional lifestyle where I was like trying to get a job with a corporate company or something, the information that I'm putting out is taboo and would, really hurt my ability to like get hired by a job or something like that, because they don't want to be associated with someone who puts out this kind of information that the powers that be don't want you to know. Okay? Male hormones, very powerful substances. The powers that be do not want you using them. They want to maintain the status quo. They want to maintain their power. They don't want you to know what these things can do. Okay? So I saw all that and I said, hey, this is over. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this lack of information out there. This is messed up. There's millions of people, using these and millions of people wanting to use these, and there's no real reliable information. I'm going to change that because I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like deception. And you know what? I feel like you should just be able to find somebody, like some honest guy, like your buddy, who is just going to tell it like it is, and not be like, what the hell is all this stuff with half-truths and having to like run circles in order to get any freaking true information. That is stupid. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be that guy. And that was like one of the things too, because, obviously like my family, it doesn't like it that I, put myself out there so much with this, because like I said, it's culturally unacceptable. And, they say something to me before, like, why does it have to be you? Why does it have to be you that is the one, who will put themselves out there and, like try and like change that culture and something. That's what everybody says, that's what everybody says. If you really feel passionate about something, and I feel passionate about this, getting the correct information out there, then you got to do what you got to do. And so that's what I said. I calculated the positives and negatives of doing this, and I said, hey, this is important to me. This is important to me to change this culture and to make this information about PEDs widely available, the true information. And you know what? The person that's going to do it is going to be me. So that's why I'm doing this. Wanted to say something real quick. If you guys have heard a little bit of funny noises in the background during the last couple podcasts, that is because I am now filming the podcast in Thailand, and had a bit of a difficulty finding a spot that is private enough to film the podcast or record the podcast. So if you're hearing a little bit of funny language in the background or funny sounding noises in the background, that is people speaking the Thai language. And now you know what Thai sounds like. And it's a fun language. If you ever come to Thailand, try to learn a little bit of it. This is going to be the last episode where you're hearing any of that. Going forward, it will be back to normal. Okay, so if you guys want to do the coaching, or you want to do a 1 hour consult, a 1 hour phone call consult with me, you can hit me up over email at steroidspodcast@gmail.com. Send me an email at steroidspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll set it up. All right, so let's get on to the questions. Got some great questions. And the first one is from Johnson, who asks, when trying to suss gear in the gym, do you think approaching blatant meathead roid heads is a good idea on trying to find some testosterone. Ha ha ha. I only know one guy, but he's too protective of me to let me join the dark side with him. Well, the truth is that, if somebody, is obviously on gear and they go to the gym, then yeah, obviously they know how to get gear, but, and sometimes they're also selling gear, but, obviously if that's the case, you're most likely going to have to build some trust with them first. And they also might not be selling gear. That's quite an assumption to think that, but obviously they know where to get it. Okay. So maybe they could point you in the right direction. But I do not think that it is a good idea to walk up to one of them and blatantly ask them, where can I get testosterone when you don't know them. That is disrespectful for one thing. And, it's not a good idea. Okay, the way to do that is like anything else in life. You just become friends with them, okay? Just be cool. Don't be weird, like walking up to someone you don't know and asking some kind of strange personal question like that, like, hey, where can I get test? That's weird. So if you want to ask a guy at the gym, or, you're trying to get some testosterone at the gym, and, you see some guy who obviously has access to it, the first step is to be friendly with the dude. You don't need to talk about gear. Just, be friendly with him, say what's up, work out hard so that he can see that you're not some kind of jackass. So you can see that you're working out hard, you're training intense. And when you guys are talking, if he is, not a jackass too, if he's open about his use, at least to a reasonable level where he's like, yeah, of course I use that, and it doesn't mean that you're a jackass if you are not open about the use. That's not what I mean at all. Because like we said, there are many reasons to not be open about it. One thing would be your job, and if it's not compatible with that, to be open about it. And another thing would be legality issues, and if it's not compatible enough with that, to be open about it. So if somebody has one of those reasons for not being open about it, that's up to their discretion, and they have no obligation to tell you whether or not, or admit whether or not they're using that to you. Okay, but if the guy is, not worried about those things and he's open with you, then if you're working out hard and you're working your ass off and you guys are friends, you guys are buds, acquaintances, whatever, you talk a bit at the gym, etc., it'll come up. Okay, after a little while, after a couple weeks, after a few weeks, you're talking. Or you could say something like, hey man, like, after you guys have been talking about workouts, diet a bit, and he's seen you like training your ass off, say something like, hey, I'm training my ass off, like trying to get big. I am doing everything that I can do, but, I think I need something more. Like, if I was able to have testosterone or have hormones to help me in the gym and help me with my goals, I'm doing everything else that I can do, and I think you can see that. And so, would you know how to point me like in the right direction? Would you know somewhere where I might be able to find something like that? And you know what? He might say yeah, and he might say no. And that's up to him. But, obviously he does know, where to point you in the right direction. So that's just the way it is. And, that's what I'm saying is that if you're training your ass off, he's going to have some respect for you. Okay. So that's the number one thing, letting him know that you respect him, and letting him see by your training and your dedication that, him having some respect for you too. And then if you say something like, I need some help, I'm training my ass off, and I know that I need a bit something more. Could you point me, or would you know where to point me in the direction of finding something like that? That's not an insulting way to question it at all. That's not an insulting question at all. So he's either going to have the option of saying yeah, or and blah blah blah, or he's going to have the option of saying, nah, sorry man, I don't know. And at that point, it's not going to be disrespectful to him to say something like that, or it's not going to make him angry or cause some kind of weird awkward scene in the gym. Okay, so you don't need to worry about it. That's the way to do it. If you are looking for this stuff and you're looking for it in the gym, then you got to get in with the guys at the gym who are using it. Train hard. Let them develop some respect in you because they can see that you're a hard worker. And then, they'll, when you say you're looking for some extra help, they can choose whether or not to help you. But I do not recommend just walking up to some random big guy at the gym and being like, hey, give me your source. That's going to blow up in your face. All right, the next question is from MPC, who asks, what is your take on a mixed TRT? 100 milligrams testosterone cypionate, 50 milligrams Deca Durabolin and per week, and 25 milligrams Proviron per day. I'm hearing this being presented as more beneficial than traditional TRT. Yeah, some anti-aging clinics and hormone replacement therapy clinics, or they do prescribe testosterone and Deca, sometimes Anavar, sometimes, they can prescribe whatever hormone they want. That's the doctor's prerogative with his patients, as long as the hormone is FDA approved in the country that the doctor's prescribing it in. And so sometimes these clinics will prescribe testosterone along with Deca, and they can also provide Proviron too. If you like the effects of those drugs and you want them in there, you can put them in there, as long as, it's because you're talking about long-term TRT. So I'm guessing that you're talking about using some gear and doing it long-term in a TRT style, and you want to have, perfect health markers, because when you go to a doctor and get testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, they're going to be monitoring you with your testosterone dosage and everything like that. That is making you be able to do it in a healthy way. And, testosterone, just testosterone, is very well tolerated by the body in dosages from, 100 milligrams per week up to around 1,000 milligrams per week. Most people can do only testosterone, or can do a testosterone only cycle, is a better way to phrase that, and, have acceptable blood work in the normal range using those kinds of dosages, because testosterone is a bioidentical hormone. It's not a hormone that's toxic to the body at all. And so the body knows what to do with it, and it's very well tolerated. So once you start adding in, artificial hormones that are, not natural to the body, and the body has to figure out what to do with it, it's not natural, then you start adding in components that, can screw up your blood work a little bit more and have some health risks. So Deca and Proviron, Nandrolone is the generic name or the chemical name for Deca Durabolin, which is brand name. It's another hormone, so Deca, Durabolin, Nandrolone, and Proviron are also very well tolerated hormones, but they are not the natural hormone. And they can have some effects on your blood work, but at low dosages, like you were talking about, a TRT doctor, most likely he could get you on some of those hormones and get it so that your blood work was in the normal ranges. There was no bad look in your blood work or bad look in your health markers on those hormones. Now, would you want to do that? Well, it depends on what your goals are. Most guys that have, any bit of Deca in there, their sex drives are not going to be as good as without Deca, just because of what Deca does to your progesterone and prolactin levels. Proviron, it increases your sex drive a lot, and also it reduces your sex hormone binding globulin levels, which is a chemical that is naturally floating around in your blood that binds up most of the testosterone in your blood and makes it unable to have its effect. So then when you take the Proviron, it then binds to the sex hormone binding globulin instead and makes it so that more of the hormones that you have in your blood are able to not be inactivated by that globulin, and then they're able to exert their effects in the body. So for most people, yes, using Proviron alongside their TRT, their testosterone replacement therapy dosage of testosterone, will make them, have a much higher sex drive and will make the testosterone that they're using work a lot better. Adding Deca, not so much. But, having more hormones in, more muscle building hormones such as Deca, it will, help you have more anabolic effect. And a lot of people, that are a little bit older or may have aching joints may find some joint relief effects from Deca because it has joint healing and lubrication properties to it. So those would be reasons why someone would do that. And those are also the reasons why, someone may not use other things in addition to testosterone. So, you can have a great sex drive and, have great effects with, just normal TRT testosterone, because once the testosterone gets in your body, then, the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, which is a natural enzyme of your body, converts some of that testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, which is Proviron is basically an orally available form of dihydrotestosterone. And dihydrotestosterone is mostly a brain chemical that stimulates your brain and makes, male hormonal effects in the brain. It also is what works on, your penis, to make it have, function correctly, and, your body hair, your skin, all these things like this, all the male effects in the body outside of muscle are what dihydrotestosterone causes those, okay? And Proviron is like an orally available form of that. So you can just take a tablet and get those effects. And then it also makes the testosterone that you have in your body, more of it be released from the sex hormone binding globulin and available to be used in your body. So Proviron's a great thing. Personally, the way that I do TRT, I've said this many times, is that, I do a cycle of, testosterone, Primobolan, Anadrol, Winstrol, whatever, So I do a cycle of gear for growing muscle or whatever. And then when I'm ready to be done with that, I come off and I just take nothing for about 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 6 weeks. Just take nothing. And I let all the hormones clear out of my system. And then when I start feeling like, hey, I can definitely tell that I've got no hormones in my system. And believe me, you'll know. Okay, it's very obvious. Then I start doing TRT. And when I start doing TRT, what am I trying to do during that time? Well, I'm not on gear. I'm trying to return back to homeostasis. So what I do is I don't add anything like Proviron. I don't add anything like Deca. I don't add any SARMs. I don't add any Anavar. I just take the natural hormone, okay? So I start taking 1 milliliter of testosterone per week, and I do that for a month or two. And then after I've done that for a month or two, now I've been off of gear, off of super physiological dosages for 2 to 3 months, and, my body is totally back to normal at that point. All my receptors, all of the different things about my body, all the brain chemicals, everything, it's all back to normal, and then I can go back on a cycle again at full health. And, that's the reason why I think, why you would want to go off of a cycle anyways or do TRT anyways is to be normal health, not taking other things. If you want to be taking other things, then generally you should be on a cycle and making the most of it. So that's the way that I do it. The next question is from Up Down, and he asks, thank you. Okay, he was asking a question. He says, Coach, does berberine decrease testosterone levels? Okay, berberine and metformin are both insulin sensitizing chemicals, so they make your cells more sensitive to the effects of insulin. And so berberine is a traditional Chinese herb that is ground up into a powder and used for as a replacement or substitute for that medication. But the actual medication, metformin, it hasn't been shown in studies that it is more effective, but anecdotally, in my experience and the experience of other people who have used it, properly for bodybuilding. Metformin is much, much more powerful at doing this effect of increasing muscle cell insulin sensitivity than berberine is, okay? So if you're looking for, a performance-enhancing drug-type effect from an insulin-sensitizing agent, metformin at 1,000 milligrams, but really 2,000 milligrams per day, split into 2 doses or so. It's very powerful, actually. You can notice huge, I don't know if I want to say huge, but, very significant differences in the amount of fullness or muscle fuel storage, glycogen loading inside your muscle cells that they're capable of producing on about 2,000 milligrams of metformin per day. Your muscles can be quite a lot more round and voluminous. I know there's been a lot of people in this industry who say things like, oh, metformin decreases IGF-1 and stuff like this. And they say, don't use it as a performance-enhancing drug. Okay, well, those people can look at their pieces of paper all they want. But, real-world results show otherwise. They're like, how could it be a performance-enhancing drug? It reduces IGF-1. All right, keep looking at your little piece of paper, bro, because, denying the effects of metformin as a performance-enhancing drug is just, ludicrous. It's just ludicrous. It's like saying that taking 50 milligrams of Anadrol doesn't do anything or something. Yes, it does, okay? And it's the same thing with metformin. If you try it, you will see, yes, it does do something. It has about the same effect on the visual appearance of your body. Not the strength. It doesn't make you gain strength. It really isn't a performance enhancer, but it does change the way you look, okay? And so on the way that you look, it has about the same effect. About 2,000 milligrams per day of metformin has, when you're on roids, do not take it if you're natural, okay? But about 2,000 milligrams per day of metformin will have the same visual effect, amount of change that it can produce in the visual effect of your body will be about on the same level as the amount of change that 50 milligrams or so of an oral steroid like Winstrol or Anadrol, something like that, could provide to your body, okay? I'm not saying it's going to make you look like those chemicals do, like those steroids do, because it's not, okay? But it has the same amount of change on the appearance of your body, okay? So those people that say, metformin doesn't do anything, okay? That is not the truth. Just straight up, that is not the truth. And if they know it, they know that what they're telling you is a lie, okay? Is a lie, because it does have an effect. That it's ludicrous to say that it does not have an effect on the appearance of your body. So then your question was about, does berberine decrease testosterone levels? Because, metformin does decrease testosterone levels. It reduces if you're a natural, if you don't inject yourself with testosterone, if you take metformin, it will decrease your testosterone levels by 50%, okay? And so berberine, it doesn't directly decrease testosterone levels, but it does decrease the androgen receptor sensitivity, so it makes them not pick up hormone signaling as well. And then the other thing that it does is it decreases the amount of conversion of testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, so it can make your sex drive go down quite a bit, because dihydrotestosterone is the brain chemical that works to make you have a sex drive. It's the chemical. Testosterone does not have a function in your brain. Testosterone has to be turned into its metabolite, which is 5 times more powerful than it outside of muscle tissue, but not inside muscle tissue. Dihydrotestosterone. The testosterone molecule interacts with an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase and becomes this molecule called dihydrotestosterone that works in tissues other than muscle, like your brain and your penis. Okay, so that is dihydrotestosterone, and that's important for your sex drive. So if you are not taking, if you're not having a lot of dihydrotestosterone, then you're not going to have, as good of an erection, and you're not going to have as good of a sex drive, because your brain androgen signaling, male hormone signaling, is going to be down. Okay, and that's just the truth. And so some people are going to, if they're wanting to market their stuff, if they're wanting to market their berberine supplements, they might say something to you like, oh, yeah, it's a good thing. It decreases, taking berberine decreases the amount of dihydrotestosterone, so you get more testosterone. No. That's not a good thing, okay? Sacrificing your sex drive for a few extra milligrams of normal testosterone and thinking that that's going to build muscle for you, no, that's not the case, okay? Berberine, yeah, it's a good thing to take if you're using gear. Insulin sensitizers, metformin, berberine, yeah, they work. They work if you're taking gear. But if you're not taking gear, it's better to just steer clear. All right, next question. This one's from Mac. He has a few good questions, so I'm going to answer a few of Mac's questions, okay? First question from Mac is, I've been on Clomid by doctor's prescription for a few years now for low testosterone. It works well. 50 milligrams 3 times a week keeps me at normal levels. Is it safe to use SARMs for a cycle with this, or would it suppress me? Okay, yeah, so there are testosterone boosting medications that actually work, okay? And they are drugs. So things like these supplements that you buy that they say is a testosterone booster, that doesn't work. What you got to take is things like Nolvadex or Clomid or HCG. These do literally boost your body's natural levels of testosterone production, okay? So like this guy said, he had low testosterone, and so when he had low testosterone, he had to go to his doctor, and his doctor gave him Clomid, and the Clomid made his testosterone double. And yes, that is normal effects. If you start taking Clomid or Nolvadex or HCG, your testicles will pump out, 2 or 3 times as much testosterone as they do naturally. Now, does this have a really big anabolic effect or a really big effect on building muscle, like making you look like you're on steroids because you take Clomid and Nolvadex? No, it does not, because there's other systemic effects that these things do to your body, and the only way to look like you're on gear is to be on gear, okay? So if you do these things that naturally boost testosterone, even if it is doing something like taking a drug like Clomid, Nolvadex, HCG, it's not going to make you look like you're on roids, okay? But he asks, if you take SARMs on the cycle, will the SARMs make it so that his testosterone levels are reduced? And the answer is no, okay? Because the way that Clomid works, for example, is that it works straight on the brain, okay? So Clomid is an estrogen receptor stimulator and blocker in different tissues. It depends on which tissue it's in. Either stimulates or blocks the androgen or the estrogen receptor, okay? And there's a certain receptor in the hypothalamus of your brain that checks how much estrogen is in your blood, okay? And Clomid goes to that receptor in your brain and it blocks it so that it can't see whether or not there's estrogen in the blood. And the level of estrogen is how your body monitors how much testosterone. Yes, testosterone is in the blood, okay? And then decides whether or not it needs to produce something called gonadotropin releasing hormone, which then stimulates your pituitary gland to release luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, which then goes down to your testicles and stimulates them to produce testosterone and produce sperm, okay? So that is called the pituitary gonadal, the hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis, okay? That whole process. And that's how your body produces testosterone. So when you're on gear, when you're on a cycle, one of the ways to make your body start producing natural testosterone again, and produce more sperm, because everybody that is on a steroid cycle knows that it reduces the amount of sperm and semen that you produce, okay? That's very easy to see. And so one of the ways to increase that is to take Clomid. And Clomid works better than Nolvadex, and HCG works better than Clomid. So that's sort of the order. Is Nolvadex works the worst for this, Clomid works the second best for this, and HCG works the best for this whole thing, okay? Boosting testosterone, increasing the amount of semen that you have, stuff like that. And so if you are on SARMs, what SARMs do, the way that they shut down the natural testosterone production is by messing with that signal on your hypothalamus. Okay, your hypothalamus. SARMs are a new chemical. They're an experimental chemical, so no one knows exactly how they work, or exactly how they reduce the shut down natural testosterone production. And they the truth is that they don't shut down natural testosterone production nearly as much as normal steroids do. Okay, but they still do have some effect. So when I'm talking about this, I'm just explaining to you how this process works of making natural testosterone. And then there is no hard scientific data on how SARMs reduce natural testosterone, but I'm helping you to understand this process so that you can more clearly understand it. And now I'm going to make some kinds of I'm going to say some things that are more like my speculations. Okay, so this part is not a fact. This is more of my speculation, and that is that when you are on SARMs, there's something going on with your brain recognizing that there are some, hormone receptor stimulators in your body, and your brain recognizes that and stops producing more of its own hormones, okay? But when you have the Clomid in there, to a certain extent, it keeps your own hormones being produced by stimulating that special area in your hypothalamus, by blocking that estrogen receptor there that normally is there for causing the stoppage or controlling the amount of testosterone that you produce. That was really complicated. Want to keep things more simple in general than that. But it was a great question. And the question is, are you going to have a drop in sex drive if you start using SARMs because of being shut down, because you're on Clomid for low testosterone? No. If you got low testosterone and you're on Clomid, and the Clomid is making your testosterone go up and you're feeling good, you got a normal testosterone level, and then you add SARMs, the only thing that's going to do is it's going to make things better. Okay, it's going to add to your strength, it's going to add to your ability to gain muscle, and it's probably also going to add to your sex drive. It's not going to have negative effects. Okay, second question from Mac. He's got some really good questions here, so we're going to answer a few of them. Is there significant benefit, and is it safe to add SARMs to a TRT dose of testosterone? Can any dose of LGD be comparable to 500 milligrams of testosterone weekly? Okay, my first experience with this was my friend who did a first cycle of 500 milligrams of testosterone, pharmaceutical grade, per week for his first cycle. Before that, he had run a cycle of LGD4033 at 15 milligrams per week. And when he was on his first steroid cycle of testosterone 500 milligrams per week, he said to me, this is not as strong as the LGD4033 15 milligrams per week cycle that I ran. Okay, that's what he said on his first steroid cycle of 500 milligrams testosterone per week to me. Okay, so my experience been a little bit different. I've used LGD4033, the SARM, at 15 to 20 milligrams per day, and to me, it felt a little bit more like the muscle building power, the anabolic power of about 300 milligrams of testosterone per week, okay? That's the effect that it had for me. So it did not feel like 2 cc's of testosterone per week for me, but for my friend, for him, it felt different. And this is not an internet friend, guys. This is a guy that I personally know, and I was with him, okay? So this is not talking out of my ass. So yes, SARMs do work. They're pretty powerful. But they don't make monsters. The guys who are, monsters, they look juiced up. They look like they're on gear. They're not, relying on SARMs to do that. If they tell you that that's what they're doing, that's not true. So you just gotta know that this is the way it is, okay? This is the way it is for now. But, where I really did notice SARMs shine for me was when I used them in addition to testosterone on my cycle. And so when I've used 1,000 milligrams or 1,250 milligrams of testosterone per week, and I've added in LGD 4033, 15 to 20 milligrams per day, or S23 SARM at 30 to 60 milligrams per day, I noticed a significant change in my strength, okay? In my strength. And then when I take it out, I notice a significant decrease in my strength. And those SARMs, LGD4033 and S23, do not harm my liver or give me liver stress the way some stronger steroids can, such as like Anadrol or Winstrol or Superdrol can, okay? And I did get significant strength boosts. I'm not talking about a little strength boost. When I added it on top of that large dose of testosterone, 1 gram plus per week, and I added the SARMs, it made a significant difference. So I liked that because it was able to do that without, noticeably affecting my health. And so I have some reviews for the SARMs that I've used on my website, bodybuilderinthailand.com. So on the homepage there, or the second page, you can look for my reviews on that. And there's also some links to those reviews on steroidspodcast.com as well. There's links to those bodybuilderinthailand.com reviews on the website for this podcast, steroidspodcast.com. Last question from Mac is more of a diet question. What do you think some of the YouTubers now recommending people recomp instead of bulk? Is it dumb to do if you're on gear? Yeah, I've mentioned about recomping before. Recomposition does work. The only time that you're going to get major recomposition effects is when you first start using gear. Then you can get major recomposition effects, if you do a first cycle, or, you haven't reached anywhere near your natural limit, which, honestly it's not that advanced, because naturals are not that advanced. And you go on, a strong cycle of roids, you can get some pretty significant recompositioning effect, like, 15 pounds increase in muscle, 15 pounds decrease in fat, or so like that, over a course of like 4 to 6 months on something like 1.5 grams or 2 grams per week of total gear. If you're doing that and that's your first cycle, you're taking 300 to 500 to 700 milligrams of trenbolone per week with, 600, 700, 800 milligrams of testosterone, and you're taking Winstrol or D-bol with that, and maybe you're taking some Masteron with that, and you're doing that all at the same time, and you're a beginner. Yeah, you're going to notice some pretty extreme recompositioning effects. But other than that, recompositioning is a really slow process, and it's really not the best way to do things at all. If you want to gain major strength and muscle size, you have to gain weight. You have to gain body weight. If you want to reduce major amounts of fat, you have to lose body weight, okay? You cannot just recomposition and stay at the same weight and expect to take drugs and then come out of it looking like these people, like these fitness models or these Instagram models or YouTubers or, bodybuilders that are competitive bodybuilders. That is not how it works. And one way that people do, try to use drugs is to cover up for, those inabilities of being able to do the basics, like knowing how to gain weight, knowing how to lose weight, and then being like, oh, well, I'll just take the drugs. No, you're going to get lackluster results that are not the results that you want. You're not going to gain these large amounts of strength and size. You're not going to lose large amounts of fat and get shredded recompositioning. You have got to learn how to gain body weight and how to lose body weight. And one of the things that helps with that is having an experienced coach, because these things are not scientific. They're not things that you can learn about and, study and then all of a sudden just know how to do them. These are things that are going to take troubleshooting, and having a coach that has been there, done that, and can help you troubleshoot these issues with the own physiology of your own body is going to be what helps you get there. So for the average guy that goes on some kind of a cycle, it goes on a strong cycle, what he knows is, appropriate to make him have his metabolism fully flared, something like 1,000 milligrams total steroids per week, or 1,500 milligrams total steroids per week. If he goes on a cycle like that and he doesn't change his body weight, he could probably expect to do something like gaining 5 pounds of muscle and losing 5 pounds of fat, provided his strength went up and he was able to apply progressive overload on the cycle, okay? And his weight did not change. That would be a sign, as long as he was able to continue increasing strength week to week, or every 2 weeks, or every 3 weeks. Those would be signs, and his body weight was staying the same at the same time, that he was having a body recompositioning effect, okay? But as soon as that, you're not able to make those, linear strength gains anymore over time, and your body weight is staying the same, I'm sorry, but you're at a standstill for the most part. And, you got to know how to gain and lose weight. That's one of the things that comes with experience, and you can't cut corners on learning how to do that. Joel asks, do you think time off resets the androgen receptor, or is going on a cruise coming off just for health? Okay, so coming off does not really reset the androgen receptor much, okay? So if you want to be big, then you want to be on gear and on a lot of gear, okay? So one of the things that happens, from being on for a long time is that your health gets bad, and when your health is bad, your blood markers are bad, your organs aren't functioning properly, aren't digesting food properly, then you're not able to build muscle in a premium way or in an optimal way. And you need to go off or go on to a cruise, go on to TRT or whatever, and get your health back, so that then your digestive system can start processing food and producing muscle at an optimal rate, because that's not happening if you're not healthy. So that is the main reason to do cruising or to go on TRT to stop a steroid cycle. It's to get healthy, okay? It's not to gain strength. It's not to gain muscle or reset androgen receptors. Actually, going on roids and taking more and more increasing dosages of roids increases the amounts of androgen receptors in your body, okay? It makes your body produce more, to be on more milligrams per week. And the reality is that the biggest guys never go off, okay? They never go off gear. And when they say that they go off, it's not true. When you really watch them and you install cameras at their house or whatever and seeing what they're doing when people are not looking, they're still taking 3 cc's or 4 cc's of testosterone per week, 50 milligrams of Trenbolone every other day, and 400 milligrams of Deca or something, or 400 milligrams of equipoise per week. They're still on growth hormone, stuff like that. That's their cruise, because it is nothing like their blast, okay? So they say, I'm off, but really they're on this freaking cocktail of shit still, okay? This is what the biggest guys are doing, because that's what you got to be doing to be really big, is be on cycle. Or at least not be off cycle very often, and definitely not be doing like PCTs and stuff like that. Okay, the biggest guys do not PCT and go off and be natural for a long time. That's a fact. Although people will say, they will say things that are not true and say that they do go off. But in reality, this is not true, that they're completely going off like that. I do recommend going off. I do not recommend making bodybuilding some kind of suicide mission. I do recommend going off, doing TRT, things like that, blasting and cruising. But I do not. But I am going to tell you the truth, that the biggest, strongest, most physically powerful guys do not truly go off ever. And a lot of them, it's just smaller dosages. So they'll be doing something like their blasts, are 2,500 milligrams up to 4,000, 5,000 milligrams of total anabolics per week with growth hormone and everything. Maybe 700 milligrams of Tren thrown in there per week, or 1 gram of Tren thrown in there per week, along with a gram of Deca, along with a vial of testosterone per week. Okay, so around 2,500 milligrams of testosterone per week. And then they go off, and now here's their cruise And, they say I go off, but it really means that they do their cruise, which is their, low dosage phase. And that, is usually a couple or a few cc's of testosterone per week. And, sometimes even tren, you guys. Sometimes these guys never go off of tren. And Deca, equipoise, stuff like that. Sometimes they're taking tablets still, taking Anavar. I get a lot of guys asking me questions. I get emails all the time from these guys they're emailing me, and they're saying, I'm on a cruise. Is it okay for me to take Anavar and SARMs? Is it okay for me to inject Masteron, 200 milligrams per week, including it in my cruise? And I'm like, dude, well, why are you cruising in the first place? Or they'll ask me if they can do that during their PCT. Okay, so what they are wanting to do is take drugs during their PCT and say that it's their PCT. And I'm saying, well, why are you PCTing in the first place? Why are you going on cruise in the first place? It's to get your health back. It's to get your health back to 100%. It's to reset and become normal. So why are you trying to add in like all these drugs, So it's not the point. The point of doing a PCT or doing a cruise, a testosterone replacement therapy phase, is to get your health back to 100% normal, and then, go on and start, being at full blast metabolism, building muscle or burning fat or whatever your goal is at, the maximum potential. So I don't see why you would be adding things, adding drugs, adding hormones that are going to be nothing like being natural. And that's why I do not recommend, adding things to your cruise. Just take testosterone during your cruise, okay? If you're going to be doing blasting and cruising, just take a couple 100 milligrams of testosterone, 1 cc per week for your cruise. And if you absolutely must have something more, you can throw in a tablet of Proviron every day, 25 milligrams of Proviron. Or if your sex drive is down. But me personally, I don't do that. I just take a cc of testosterone and let my body get completely back to normal. There's a lot of abuse, a lot of heinous use of PEDs out there, guys. And so I'm not going to try to hide it from you or sugarcoat it. So that's why I'm telling you some of these, things that are totally insane, that are what people do. But, with these bodies that are totally insane, you see these people's bodies, and it's, so freaky. It looks like an experiment, some kind of science experiment, and it is very insane looking, okay? You can't be duped into believing that those insane results are produced by moderation or mild use of PEDs, okay? Those bodies are produced by extreme practices, extreme use of PEDs, doing extreme things. So I'm just telling you this. I'm very much not supporting the use of doing those things, okay? I'm just telling you that stuff because this is the reality. Trust your eyes. Trust your freaking eyes. When you see those extreme things, when you see these extreme lifts, when you see these extreme bodies, know that there is extreme PED use going into producing those results. So, the next question is from Danny, who asks, hey, maybe you can answer this in the next podcast. What's the limit for how long you can run Anavar? Okay, so a lot of people on the internet say things about oral anabolics, like, you can only use it for 4 weeks and stuff like that. Well, yeah, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, that's always a good time. That's a good basic cycle for using oral anabolics. But let me just tell you a little bit about how these things are prescribed, okay? So Anavar, when it's prescribed, it's typically actually prescribed, yes, in about 4-week cycles at 20 milligrams per day for muscle wasting. It has been studied. They've used it in elderly patients in studies, that people who are over 65 years old, and they've ethically studied oxandrolone, that's the chemical name for Anavar, for up to 4 months straight with no breaks in these elderly people, grandmas and grandpas who are 65 years or older, okay? They have put them on Anavar for more than 4 months straight with no breaks, okay? And done ethical studies with them. Why is that? Well, that's because like we talked about in the last episode of the podcast, taking gear is more like smoking or something like that. It's not something that just kills you overnight. It's something that can, make bad effects to your health markers, and over time that builds up and becomes unhealthy for you and can make unhealthy effects. Okay? So people can use these things for extended periods of times and, not keel over and die. It's just a male hormone. It's the same way that, women can take birth control, female hormones, for extended periods of times, and they don't keel over or die. Later down the road, if they took them for a long time and, really used a lot of birth control, can it contribute to some, diseases like osteoporosis and breast cancer? Yes, it can. So it's the same thing with male hormones. Yes, if you take these things for a long time, if you take them at excessive dosages, things like that, they can add up and have some bad effects. But, people are worried about something like liver stress, okay, from some of these drugs. And, here's another thing, is that Anadrol, okay? It's prescribed by doctors, usually at around 100 milligrams per day or so, okay? 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight is the minimum recommended dosage that doctors prescribe Anadrol at, okay? That's what it says in the package insert for Anadrol when you buy pharmaceutical grade Anadrol, and the little piece of paper that comes in there that tells the doctors how to prescribe it. It says prescribe this at 1 to 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight to your patients. So basically what that means is if a man weighed 100 kilograms, then the minimum dosage that the doctor has suggested to prescribe the man Anadrol at is 100 milligrams per day, okay? And they've used Anadrol in studies on people for well over 6 months, okay? They've studied Anadrol in humans nonstop for well over 6 months. That's a fact. Is it a good idea to take Anadrol for 6 months? No. Is it going to kill you? Is it going to make your liver get shit out your ass, drop out your asshole? No, it's not. But if you do some, things that are very reckless while you're taking Anadrol at the same time, like, binge drinking, getting drunk all the time, taking other drugs, eating excessive protein intakes, and, maybe you even have a pre-existing health condition, history of liver disease, things like that. Well, now all these factors can add up and have some kind of adverse event. And, some things like that have happened from time to time. And, also things like people taking too many tablets of vitamin D and then, having like kidney failure or something have also happened over time, okay? So just because there's been some kind of freak accident with someone with freak physiology, 1 or 2 times in the history of the world doesn't mean that that's going to happen or that that's normal or regular. It's just a freak thing that happened. So normally that's what you have to remember when you're talking about, how long can I take this oral anabolic for? Okay, is that in order for you to have any kind of results that stick around for any kind of period of time, the minimum amount of time to use them is something like 3 or 4 weeks, okay? If you use them for any kind of shorter length than that, then the effect is pretty much just bullshit, and it's something that is going to have an effect while you're on it, and then that effect is 100% completely gone when you're off of it. And you got to make your own decision for how long to run these things. For the really harsh, so I can give you anecdotal evidence and, data that I've compiled from my own use and from other people that I know who use them, okay? So if you're doing something like, drinking a little bit of alcohol 1 time a week or something like that, and taking oral anabolics at the same time, something like D-bol or Anadrol, and you're taking, 50 milligrams of Anadrol per day, or, 30 to 50 milligrams of D-bol per day, or 50 milligrams of Winstrol per day, or 100 milligrams of Anadrol per day, something like that. Generally, you can keep that up for 4 to 5 weeks or so, nonstop, and even, maybe getting drunk once a week. Do I think that's a good idea? No. I'm just telling you the facts of the way it is, okay? and you can, finish up that 4 or 5 weeks and, be fine, be okay. If you do have any liver stress from that, and normally what the signs of liver stress are after that point is feeling tired, maybe feeling a little bit of sickness, kind of having your having some kind of red bloodshot eyes, and feeling tired. Those are normally the effects. And when that happens, the liver cells, when you go off, they regenerate in about 30 days after you go off of the oral anabolic, and they can regenerate back to full strength after about 30 days. The liver is a very resilient organ. So other anabolics, especially if you have a very healthy liver when you start them, you can run them from 8 to 12 weeks and have no significant negative side effects. Yeah, you might have some elevated liver enzymes a bit while you're on it, but you won't have any noticeable bad side effects, and you're not going to shit your liver out and drop it. So low dosage oral anabolics for more extended periods of time, 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 weeks, those generally work a lot better using them in that format for extended gains. Okay, that's my experience. That's the experience of the people that I know. But if you want to be on the very, very conservative side, where you get, some good effects, but you're able to keep, any kind of health effects, very minimum, a good strategy to use would be something for orals like 30 days on, 30 days off. So that 30 days off, that is the amount of time that it takes a damaged liver to repair all of its cells and return back to normal, okay, after being damaged. And, I really do not know anyone except for, a few guys who would say maybe 3 weeks. But the vast, vast majority of people that have a healthy liver do not experience any negative side effects from oral steroid before the conclusion of 4 weeks. So all that is going to be what I say about, how long you should run an oral steroid for. It's up to you. So moving on with the next question is from Blue STI, who asks, he was wondering how long, if he uses a blast of testosterone, it takes to drop his normal testosterone levels back down, drop his testosterone levels back to the normal level for a TRT doctor to check up. Would 3 weeks before be good? Okay, yeah. So with testosterone enanthate, long ester testosterone, it takes about 3 to 5 weeks for it to completely get out of your system. But pretty much after 3 or 4 weeks, the levels are down again. But I mean, if you're getting checked by a doctor, you definitely want to be done 5 weeks before for them to be checked. But the real thing with this is that you don't want to be, if you're getting checked your testosterone levels and you want them to be at a certain way, just don't use any long ester testosterone. Use testosterone propionate, and then within, stop using it 2 or 3 weeks before you're going to get your test for your testosterone levels. And your testosterone levels will be completely the way that they were if you weren't using testosterone propionate anymore. If you use it, and something like an acetate, propionate, use those kind of esters for injectables, okay? And stop everything 2 or 3 weeks before you're going to get checked, and they'll be completely out of your system. Just don't use long esters. Everybody metabolizes, which means destroys or breaks down these chemicals at different rates. So it's not even. It's like one guy will get it out of his system 1 week or 1 week later than another guy who gets it out of his system more quickly. So that's just the way this goes. It's not the same with everybody because different people have different abilities to metabolize or destroy these chemicals and get them out of their bodies from different times. If you want to be on the safe side, you don't want to be messing with getting your TRT script revoked because you were doing steroid cycles while you were on TRT. Just use propionate, acetate, short-acting esters. Don't use long esters like enanthate or Deca, stuff like that. Don't use that. Use something like NPP instead of Deca, testosterone propionate instead of enanthate, or trenbolone acetate instead of enanthate. Use that kind of stuff. And then quit 2 to 3 weeks before you're going to get tested, and it will be completely out of your system. You'll just have your normal TRT testosterone back, okay? So the next question is from Black, who asks 500 Deca only versus 350 test only for first cycle. People are saying Deca is much safer on hair and skin. Okay, so 350 testosterone only is going to be stronger than 500 Deca only. That's just the way it is. I know that people will debate that a little bit, like some strong Deca advocates might debate that a little bit. But, overall, as a long-term thing, the 350 testosterone is going to produce some more gains and just like a more strong effect than the 500 Deca. It's also the natural hormone, so your body knows what to do with it better. There's less potential for troubleshooting side effects. Is testosterone, more able to make people who are genetically predisposed to having hair loss lose their hair? Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it is. If hair loss is a huge concern for you and you're really worried because, in your genetics, you have hair loss in your genetics, so you're someone who loses their hair, well, then if you go ahead and start injecting yourself with testosterone, that hair is going to fall out, okay? And, it'll stop falling out as soon as you stop taking the testosterone, and you can stop that progress. But if you're going to be regularly using something and, you are sure that you are genetically predisposed to losing your hair, okay, well then taking stuff like Deca with no testosterone and things like Anavar, that's going to be your best bet for being able to use some gear and keeping your hair on your head. But for other than guys like that, using testosterone, testosterone is really good stuff, man. Testosterone makes you big. Testosterone builds muscle and makes you big and full and strong, okay? So if you handle testosterone well, and most people do, it's the bioidentical hormone, okay? It's the hormone that you naturally produce. So the only reason why you wouldn't handle testosterone well usually is because you don't control your estrogen. So make sure you have some Arimidex, exemestane, or letrozole. Get a blood test done after you've been on the testosterone for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. See what your levels are, and get a full health panel done, if you're having side effects or something, so you can see what's up and see what you need to troubleshoot, and get your levels right. And 350 milligrams of testosterone per week for the vast majority of people, that's not going to be a problem. That's not going to cause problems. There's a few people super sensitive to testosterone. It's going to cause problems, but that's not the average guy. For the average guy, that's not going to cause problems, and it's going to be a much more pleasant experience with less troubleshooting than 500 milligrams of Deca only per week. If somebody really wants to take Deca only per week, or Deca only, that's fine. They can do that too. But for the average guy, no, it's not advisable. It's not recommended for the average guy. But if somebody's bent on doing that, I got no problem with that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do the Deca. I'm thinking, since you're asking about it, that's something that you're really interested in doing. There's no problem with that. You can go ahead and do that. But for the average guy who asks me, what should I do for my first cycle? I'm not going to go and tell him 500 Deca only. Like that, it would, I wouldn't even say 350 testosterone only. For the average guy who wants to do his first cycle, I would want to make things like close to normal. So give him a high testosterone level that was like a high natural testosterone level, okay? So something like 1 milliliter of testosterone per week, so that he had high normal testosterone levels, or just above the normal range of testosterone levels. And then on top of that, I'd want to give him another drug that build muscle, build strength, increase performance, but didn't do anything like producing any sex drive effects that were like negative, or giving him gyno or anything like that. Just something that was clean and gave him gains. So something like adding in 50 milligrams of Anavar, 50 milligrams of Anadrol, 50 milligrams of Turinabol, something like that, to the 1 milliliter of testosterone per week. And then he's going to have, a nice increase in strength, a nice increase in sex drive, and, a good muscle building agent, and a good, his physique will automatically start looking better, after the first week on cycle, stuff like that. on 350 milligrams of testosterone per week or 500 milligrams of Deca per week, you're not going to get an effect from that. Like within the first week, you're stronger and you're bigger and your body looks better. It's going to be something where you got to like be waiting out like a month or so to really start getting those effects in there where you're like, okay, now this is starting to go more like how I want it to go. And so usually when you start a roid cycle, especially if it's your first time, you're like really anxious for those effects and you want to see, what are these things going to do for my body, and doing something like waiting a month for some kind of gradual effects to come on, that's really just like not what you were looking for. So that for the average guy that starts, I recommend something that starts them off. It's easy. There's not much troubleshooting. There's not going to be a lot of side effects or problems, things with estrogen, things like that, and he can just take it. And within a week or so, he's feeling stronger. He's looking better. His muscles are bigger. He's growing. He's feeling good, stuff like that. So for that, I would recommend something like 1 cc of testosterone with 50 milligrams of Anavar or 50 milligrams of Winstrol or 50 milligrams of Turinabol. Those drugs don't turn into other hormones in your body. They just are what they are, and they increase your strength, performance, and make you look better, within days of getting on them. And it's really easy to take them. It's enjoyable to take them. Any horror stories that you've heard about, like, your joints breaking off or something like that from taking Winstrol, that's all internet garbage. Don't believe this shit that you hear on the internet. Okay, don't believe this shit that you hear on the internet about steroids because it's freaking 90% wrong. Freaking 90% wrong. It's, it disgusts me, the stuff that you read on the internet, all the confusing dog shit that you read about steroids on the internet. All right. The next question is from Thanos. Why would someone choose Masteron Probe over Enanthe if Masteron Enanthe is cheaper, less oil, and less pinning? Okay, this is a good question. So Masteron is a bit of a strange chemical, okay? And it's hard to feel the effects or see the effects from it, okay? And so in my experience, I actually used Masteron Probe before I used Masteron Enanthe before I ever used Masteron Probe, and I vastly prefer Masteron Probe. And the reason for that is because, Masteron does not build muscle, for one thing, okay? It does have tremendous sex drive effects, and it also produces this thick oil slick on the top of your skin that's shiny. Those are the two main effects of Masteron, producing that oil on your skin that is shiny, and it's a really thick oil, too. And then increasing your sex drive massively. But it doesn't make you gain a lot of muscle, and it also won't, get rid of or stop gyno if you are getting gyno. There's a myth out there that is a pretty pervasive myth that, Masteron works, better than a Arimidex or something for stopping gyno. That's not true. I experienced that one myself, too, during my first cycle. I added Masteron into my Trenbolone cycle on my first cycle, and that shit did not stop me from beginning to form prolactin-induced Trenbolone gyno like I'd read all over the internet, okay? And then as soon as I took, my my aromatase inhibitor, my exemestane and my pramipexole, that did work, okay? But not the Masteron. That was a myth, and it's not just my body, okay? When you talk to other users who actually use this stuff in real life, not stuff you're reading on the internet, it's the same thing. So when Masteron has some of these kinds of strange effects like this, and it like where it's a sex drive thing, it's a sex drive drug, and also produces this thing on your skin and really doesn't produce a lot of muscle building effects. It can increase your strength a little bit, mostly by reducing sex hormone binding globulin and making the other steroids that you're on, like testosterone, work better. But it, with these kind of more subtle effects like this, these drugs that produce subtle results, they're not like a big bang kind of drug that's producing big bang muscle building. It's better when you can feel them more quickly and see them acting more quickly and get this like whoopah effect from it. So when you're doing propionate and you start taking Masteron propionate, the full effects, what this thing does, they're kicked in 5 days from when you first start taking it. Like, you see what that shit does 5 days after your first injection if you're taking it, every other day or every day, okay? That's the way it is. you start, feeling what this stuff does fast. And if it's enanthate, you're not feeling those full effects of what this thing does for something like 2 weeks, for about 2 weeks or so, maybe even 3 weeks. That's sort of the way it works for it to work up to those peak effects where, you're seeing like what this stuff does. And that slow, gradual buildup compared to that fast, whoopah, onset of enanthate versus propionate with a drug like Masteron that's like sort of a subtle-ish anabolic steroid. It is preferable. It is preferable to use the version that is whoopah, and it hits you really fast. Whoopah. Okay, next question. Bok Choi Gaines asks, "Hi Dan, hope you're doing well. Would adding LGD4033 to a test and Primobolin cycle be counterproductive? Would the SARM compete for the same receptor?" No, it would not be counterproductive. I actually had really great results adding LGD4033 to my testosterone cycle. I did, just before I came to Thailand, the cycle that I was running was I alternated between the SARM S23 at 30 to 60 milligrams per day and then LGD4033 at 15 to 20 milligrams per day. And I used 1,250 milligrams of testosterone per week. And I used 2.5 IUs of Jintropin, pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone per day, okay? And when I put the SARM in over that high dosage of testosterone, which is really not that high of a dosage, guys, most people are lying to you. For a person my size, okay? For a person my size, that is not a high dosage of testosterone. That's just normal dosage of testosterone. So there are people who will lie to you and say that, that's a high dosage. No, it's not. Okay? If you watch them in their bedrooms and what they're doing when no one's looking, they're doing the same thing or more, okay? So when I would put in or take out those SARMs, or, the little bit of time that I would take off when I'd switch between the S23 or the LGD4033, there was a definite difference. I mean, it was basically the same as taking a light dosage of an oral anabolic steroid, something like, 20 or 30 milligrams of Anavar or something, or, the same dosage of Winstrol or oral Turinabol. That was the, muscle building and fullness or strength effect added on to the 1,250 milligrams of testosterone that I was getting from putting the LGD4033 or the S23 in there. Growth hormone, it doesn't increase your strength, and it doesn't increase your strength. So I wouldn't, it does increase your muscle fullness, it does, but it doesn't increase your strength or your endurance or anything like that. It mostly is like, makes you look better. That's mostly what growth hormone does, is it's a really potent drug for making you look better. Decreasing your body fat, giving you full muscles, being able to eat little amounts of calories or little amounts of carbs and still having full volumized muscles. Those are the things that growth hormone is really good at. But it's not so much like a performance enhancer like, the testosterone was. So the strength, the size, or the strength and the power, most of the size coming from the testosterone 1,250 milligrams per week I was using. And then when I'd add in the S23 or the LGD4033, that made me stronger within 2 to 3 days of taking it, okay? My performance in the gym would increase, and it was a noticeable difference. It's not like a not noticeable difference or a maybe I noticed a difference. No, I noticed a difference. Okay, the next question is from Vincent, who asks, question for the podcast, purpose and function of DHT-derived steroids in a cycle. Okay, so whether steroids are derived from testosterone or derived from dihydrotestosterone, which is abbreviated DHT, or if they're originated, or their parent hormone that they're manufactured from comes from progesterone, like Trenbolone or Deca or something, that's really like, they're each families of hormones that can produce other hormones that are similar to them, But once you change those, once you make chemical alterations to testosterone, or you make chemical alterations to dihydrotestosterone, or you make chemical alterations to progesterone, then it becomes not that hormone anymore. So yeah, generally the hormones that come from those hormones have some shared effects with those parent hormones, but they aren't those parent hormones. And it's not like completely predictable, like, oh, they're going to have this type of effect. For example, Anadrol comes from dihydrotestosterone. It's manufactured, starting with a dihydrotestosterone molecule. But dihydrotestosterone is known for being something that stimulates your mind. Yes, Anadrol does very much stimulate your mind, but it's also known for being something that does not build muscle, because dihydrotestosterone cannot build muscle. It's inactivated within minutes when it goes inside of muscle tissue by an enzyme that is in muscle tissue called 3-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase. Okay, and that's why things like Proviron and mesterolone, which are so similar to dihydrotestosterone, don't build muscle because they're deactivated by this enzyme. But then you have other chemicals like Anavar or Primobolan or Anadrol that are also come from dihydrotestosterone, and they're not. Their chemical, their carbon chain chemical structure does not allow that 3-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase enzyme to inactivate them when they come into contact with it, and so then they have different effects. Steroids derived from dihydrotestosterone are known for, having that mental stimulation, and also producing a more hard appearance, a more finished, polished appearance. But then in the case, and that would be like Winstrol, Anavar, Primobolan. Those are derived from dihydrotestosterone. But then you have Anadrol, which it doesn't really produce a more dry or hard appearance at all, but it really has a big volumizing appearance on your muscles, where it really volumizes them up. It makes them pick up a lot more carbohydrates and look really big, and increases your strength a lot. And that's not really the same as those other roids that were also derived from dihydrotestosterone. So then you go, well, what the heck? Why is this one different than the other ones? And that's because once you make chemical alterations to those parent hormones, and you produce these things that are called anabolic steroids, which are things derived from testosterone, or derived from dihydrotestosterone, or derived from progesterone that build muscle, they're a different hormone now. Once you make those chemical alterations and you produce these anabolic steroids, they're now different hormones, and they have their own effects. Usually, they do share some effects from that parent hormone, but a lot of times, they are much different and have significantly different effects from that parent hormone. So each steroid has its own unique effects. You can generally get a feel for how that steroid might act in a human body by its parent hormone, but, not always. Sometimes that's absolutely not the case. And, in a lot of ways, it's extremely different than its parent hormone. So as far as your question about, what is the function of a DHT-derived steroid in a cycle? Well, it's an individual question. Each steroid has individual effects. You can get ideas about how the steroid acts and how it functions in the human body by its parent hormone, but by no means can you make blanket statements about it. And so, each steroid has its own purpose and function, and saying, because it's DHT-derived, it has this purpose in a cycle. That would be really minimizing and, not looking at the big picture and really ignoring what a lot of these things do in the real world. Okay, and the final question for today is from Rich, who says, "Hey, Dan, have only just been recommended your stuff, and after listening to the first 3 podcasts in a row, I'm impressed. Couldn't figure out how to ask a question, so here it is. He can't get his head around HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. Some people," and he mentions a couple names, Dr. Scaly, Greg Douche, say only blast it between cycle and PCT. Others like you say run on cycle. Here's where I get confused and cannot make up my mind. If test tells your testicles, your balls, to shut off, and HCG tells them to turn on, if you take together, does this not cancel each other out? I would prefer to reduce, prevent, shut down, suppression as much as possible, and make recovery on PCT easier. But with conflicting views and a lack of understanding, I'm at a loss. Thanks for advice. Thanks in advance. Yeah, thanks for answering this question, or asking this question, because this is a really good one. So, HCG, yes, it sends a direct signal to your testicles, okay, that says, turn on, okay? Things like Clomid send a non-direct signal to your testicles to turn on. What they do is they act on the hypothalamus, an area in your brain that then acts on other areas of your brain, like your pituitary gland, to then produce downstream hormones that turn on your testicles. And the hormones that turn on your testicles are luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, okay? So what HCG is, human chorionic gonadotropin, it's an analog, which means something the body recognizes as something else. That's what analog means. Or it has the same function as something else. It means something, a chemical that has the same function as another hormone, okay? So human chorionic gonadotropin has the same function in the body as luteinizing hormone, the hormone that is released from the pituitary gland when the hypothalamus releases gonadotropin releasing hormone, then the pituitary gland releases luteinizing hormone, and that tells your testicles to produce sperm and to produce testosterone, okay? So you bypass that whole thing, that whole long downstream thing that has to happen where your hypothalamus gets stimulated and then your pituitary gland gets stimulated and then your testicles get stimulated. When you take HCG, you send the direct signal, which your body sees HCG as luteinizing hormone. You send the direct signal to your testicles and you tell them to turn on. So it doesn't matter whether or not you're on steroids. If you take HCG, your testicles will be functioning at maximum capacity, okay? You'll be producing testosterone through your testicles and producing sperm through your testicles, and that's the best way to make that happen while you're on cycle. There is absolutely no simultaneous shutdown thing where you have to understand, how the fertility system and the hormone system works. It's not like the steroids work. They don't work on your testicles. That's not why your testicles get shut off. Your brain recognizes high levels of steroids in the body, which then make its system for stimulating your testicles to produce testosterone and sperm to turn off, because it says we already have enough hormones. So when your hypothalamus in your brain recognizes, hey, there's steroids in my body, then it stops producing gonadotropin releasing hormone, which then makes it so that pituitary gland has no reason to release luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. So then there's no luteinizing hormone sending the signal to your testicles to function, produce testosterone, and produce sperm. But see, that's the reason why taking steroids makes your testicles shrink and turn off while you use them, okay? But if you take HCG, you bypass that whole circuit and you send a direct signal, because HCG is seen in the body as luteinizing hormone, that hormone that comes from the pituitary gland that tells the testicles to turn on, to produce sperm, to produce testosterone, okay? HCG is seen in the body as that hormone. It sends a direct signal to your testicles to turn on, and so they turn on, okay? So that's why when you take HCG during a steroid cycle, that's why your testicles remain at full size and they remain producing testosterone naturally, and they remain producing sperm, okay? So the real reason why you would, consider not taking HCG during a steroid cycle is because, like all other systems in your body, there are hormone receptors, okay? And you don't want to, if you're going to be doing a PCT after your cycle, after you're done with your cycle, okay? Well, if you've been taking HCG on your cycle, well, now those luteinizing hormone receptors, which HCG binds to, and they're on your testicles, and HCG binds to them, and that's how they send the signal to your testicles, turn on, make testosterone, make sperm. Okay, well, if you've been sending that signal to your testicles during your steroid cycle, well, now they're not going to be as sensitive to receiving that signal as if they had just been having zero signal during your cycle, okay? And so when you're done with your cycle, if they had been having zero signal because you hadn't been taking HCG and you hadn't been producing any luteinizing hormone, well, then the smallest amount of luteinizing hormone that your pituitary gland produces is going to have, the maximum effect on your testicles and making them function correctly, okay? Because they've been hypersensitized from having none of the hormone available in your blood, luteinizing hormone, that makes them function, okay? So they'll be hypersensitive to restarting once you do PCT and, you know, your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland start producing the correct hormones and substances that make, you know, your reproductive system start functioning again. So though, if you want to do a PCT, you know, and be natural again, and not do blasting and cruising, or not do another steroid cycle after you're finished with that steroid cycle, it's probably better not to use HCG during your cycle, because then your balls will be hypersensitive to taking HCG after your cycle, or taking Nolvadex and Clomid after your cycle. They'll be hypersensitive to receiving that signal that comes to turn on, okay? But they won't be quite so sensitive if you've been using HCG already during your cycle. So that's the way that is. It absolutely works. HCG absolutely works during your cycle to maintain the size and function of your testicles. Anybody who says that it does not do that, they are misinformed. They don't know what they're talking about, because it is a fact that if you inject someone with HCG within, you know, and if they're shut down and they're taking steroids, even if they're taking fucking Tren, which is super suppressive and shrinks your balls more than any other steroid, as soon as you start taking the HCG, okay, they start growing back to size, they start functioning normally, and they start producing testosterone and sperm at normal again, okay? And that's just a fact. So if you don't want your balls to shrink when you're taking a roid cycle, then you got to take some HCG with it, okay? That's the way that works. If you're going to be stopping taking your roids, and you're wanting to PCT and be natural again, and you want to have your PCT go as powerfully and quickly and smoothly as possible, then it's probably best to just avoid the HCG while you're on your cycle. And then, you know, take HCG and Nolvadex and Clomid and all that after your cycle, so that you're hypersensitive when you stop. I need to talk about something that I brought up earlier, and that is alcohol and steroids together. So using alcohol together with steroids is a horrendous mix, okay? So I was talking about oral steroids together, and I said earlier that you can take oral steroids, and you know, while it's not healthy for you, you know, to get drunk or drink while doing that, you know, doing so once per week, getting drunk once per week is not going to make your liver, you know, come falling out your asshole, okay? However, I highly, highly discourage alcohol use combined with anabolic steroids, and it's not for health reasons. It's actually for the mental effects that it causes. These two substances go together so horribly in the mental effects that they produce, okay? So when you are on steroids, you are more aggressive, okay? Your personality becomes stronger and you become more aggressive. Now, when you take your inhibitions away by putting alcohol into the mix, that does a lot, okay? So alcohol also numbs you so that you can't like feel pain and things like that as well. And then the steroids also, they give you like that aggressiveness. And then on top of that, steroids take away your fear of getting hurt, okay? You really, when it comes to something like an aggressive confrontation with another individual, like steroids make your fight or flight response shift dramatically towards fight, okay? For a normal person that isn't a steroid user, you know, getting in a fight is like the last thing on earth that they want to do. And like they will do whatever it takes to prevent that from happening. However, when you are on steroids, your initial impulse, when you get in a, you know, that first second where your body has a reaction and it makes you have a certain feeling when you get into a situation where you could get hurt or, you know, where someone's being aggressive towards you. It makes it so being on steroids, okay, this does this, is that first initial second that it's like a split-second reaction, and it's not you thinking. It's just your body acting and making you all of a sudden in 1 second feel a certain way when you recognize that you're in a possibly situation where you're going to either need to run away or fight someone. The reaction that you have when you're on steroids is to stay and fight and to not run away. Okay, that doesn't mean that you have to do that. It doesn't mean that you have to do that. It just means that the initial physical reaction that your body gives you is that you get when that fight or flight impulse, response to aggressive behavior by other men mostly happens to you. When you're in that situation, your body instantly on roids goes stand your ground or press forward, and aggress forward. The fight or flight response goes towards fight. And like I said, steroids make it so that you are not afraid to get in a fight. A normal person, they do not want to get in a fight. That is the last thing on earth. They'll do anything to prevent that from happening. When you're on steroids, you really just don't care, okay? And that's not really you. That's the steroids. So this is one of those things that it takes experience, man, and it takes responsibility, because dude, you don't want to like end up like fighting people, like getting in jail or stuff. Is roid rage real? Does it make you like, go into some kind of psychosis and start, like being some rageful person? No, but it does shift. It shifts these reactions, these split-second responses that you can have to situations, okay? So if you are on steroids and, especially once you start noticing, hey, I'm bigger and stronger than basically everyone, it's and then the mental effects that it has, where you literally, it just changes the way that you feel about getting into a fight with another person, okay? A physical fight. You're not afraid. You are not afraid. And you don't care. Things like, like the possibility that you could get hurt, you just don't care. These are mental shifts that happen from taking steroids, okay? So now you add in, alcohol, which takes away your inhibitions and numbs you. So now you're aggressive. Your natural fight or flight response puts you in the fight mode when somebody is aggressive towards you. And if you do get hurt, you can't even feel the pain anymore because of the alcohol. I mean, dude, you're a target. You're a target if you're on roids and you're a big, strong dude, because there's jackasses out there, man. When you go to places like clubs or, dance places or something like that, bars, there's jackasses out there who want to prove themselves, and they will target you to, look cool or to look like some kind of hard guy proving themselves in front of girls or in front of their friends or whatever. And if you are on gear and you go out to places where people are getting drunk and there's, like aggressive, just places where things can happen, okay? You are a target, and people will target you. Everyone that uses roids knows this. People will target you because you are that big, strong dude that is, obviously you stand out very strongly, especially in nightlife type places. And you will be targeted by these jackasses, and they will put you in situations. I'm telling you, this is not a maybe. This is a will. If you take steroids and you drink alcohol and you go out to these places like bars, clubs, bars and dance clubs, stuff like that, where people are drunk, you will be targeted, and you will find yourself in these situations where other men are aggressive towards you and do things that, that give you a fight or flight response, because they'll challenge you and touch you, push you, you know, bump into you on purpose, stuff like this, okay? And it's usually like passive aggressive stuff. But because you're not afraid anymore, because you really, it sounds kind of stupid saying this, okay? Like, oh yeah, like you're not afraid or something. Like, no, but this is a real thing. The real reaction and the way that these hormones affect your brain, okay? This is one of the main mental effects of these hormones, is that they take away your fear of confrontation with another man. It's just gone. And you know, if you are not able, when somebody is acting like a jackass to you, if you are not able to be completely the bigger person and just say, you know what, you know, nothing is worth getting in a fight and, like, you know, hurting someone, going to jail or something like that over, you're going to get in these situations where you're going to be in physical altercations with people, okay? Which is a horrible thing. Like, I mean, you're going to end up in jail if you do that. That's the reality of this. That there is no tolerance for going out and being involved in physical fights and things like that in nightlife areas. The people who do that, they get taken to jail. And, you know, it looks bad too when you are the one, you know, who is big and stronger than everyone else and you're involved in that. I mean, it's likely that the blame's going to go to you. And also, even if it's not you that, you know, was initiating the fight or whatever, you just kind of look like a bully because like it is like the appearance. You're the bigger, stronger person. And so this was a warning because I talked about alcohol a little bit with steroids. I wanted to let you know and add this part in here at the end that this is a warning that anabolic steroids and alcohol do not mix. If you want to drink a bit and take steroids, I highly recommend not binge drinking and getting drunk. This is such a strong recommendation. And I mean, I can almost say, like, positively that, you know, if you are taking roids and, you know, getting drunk, you know, binge drinking, getting really drunk, and going out in these situations with other guys, that, you know, you're going to have some major freaking problems in your life because of the mixture of those two substances. So highly discourage alcohol use mixed with anabolic steroids. And if you do want to do it, then, you know, just having a few drinks, not getting drunk, you know, that really won't cause a problem. But also remember, though, when you are, you know, in those places, and you may have these kinds of impulses, or, you know, like I said, the fight or flight thing, and how you won't be afraid either when other people are aggressive to you. You have got to make a decision before you start using these things that you are not going to be involved in physical altercations and things like fights with other men. It just has to be something where you are going to be the bigger man and you are going to not have pride about this, about the situations when they come up. And you have to already know before they happen that this is going to be your response. And so then, you know, even when you are in the right, they are in the wrong, you just know, hey, I've already made this decision, man. I am not doing that. I am not going to involve myself in any kind of physical, violent altercation. I am going to get the fuck out of there by any means necessary, and only at the absolute last resort to protect myself would I ever be involved in something like that. And other than that, if there's any possible way to get out of the situation, you have to know and have decided before you use these things that that's what you're going to do. Even if it means that there's a huge ego or pride hit or something, or, you know, makes you, you know, people laughing at you, or makes you look like some kind of pussy or something. Guess what? You're not a fucking pussy, okay? So even if you do something that makes, you know, you temporarily think that way, nope. Well, tomorrow you're, you know, Not going to be a pussy again. You're pretty fucking big and strong and jacked, okay? And you have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. Everyone already can see that you are big and strong, and they don't need to see you hurt someone in order to figure that out, okay? Everyone already knows. This is very serious, and you can tell from the way that I'm talking that, you know, this is one of the things, you guys. This is one of the things that is, it's one of the most serious responsibility aspects of using these things, is making this decision before you start using them that you are going to do this. You are going to do whatever is necessary to prevent you from being in those situations.
If you would like your questions to be answered on the Steroids Podcast, go to steroidspodcast.com and leave a comment with your questions, or email or private message steroidspodcast@gmail.com or steroidspodcast on Instagram. Until next time.